Right. Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope the break has been re-energizing, and I'm here to now look at the environmental aspects of LNG utilization in the country. So, next please. For context, this is phase 3 of GPDP. No? So, in the previous phases, there was already an understanding of how LNG will fit into the energy system. Now, the focus for this third phase is to find or to generate science-based evidence for development of regulation of policy, and especially to make sure that LNG is actually going to be beneficial. So, next slide. Some main insights. First, it's already known that compared to coal and oil power plants, gas plants do have lower emissions of greenhouse gases, and it can be a useful transition fuel, but it's still a fossil fuel, right? So there is a need to ensure that we are able to quantify the emissions. Even if it's still lower, we expect it to be lower than coal power. We still need to understand how much emissions we are going to be looking at, and how we can reduce and address those emissions aside from other environmental impacts. So in this part of the research, our questions revolve around first, what are the environmental impacts that we can expect from establishing an LNG supply chain in the country? And when we talk of impacts, we're not just limited to direct impacts, but throughout the life cycle, from extraction, transportation, regasification, all the way to utilization. And mainly, we can look at impacts as both to the ecosystem as well as to human health. And secondly, how can the Philippines develop a natural gas supply chain in an industry sustainably? Like, how can we provide information that ensures that the environmental impacts and environmental sustainability are included in our decision making, right? So, with that, the objectives of our research include the estimation of environmental impacts for natural gas supply, as well as the utilization of natural gas. Again, we are putting first in context Batangas, but the findings here are easily translated to other possible locations in the Philippines. And lastly, with the results of our sustainability assessment, can we provide recommendations for policy and business development, right? So, here we have our goal and scope. We are comparing the application of natural gas on the basis of 1 cubic meter. Since we are exploring both power and heat applications, rather than trying to make any conversions on heat to power energy units, we'll just report our results in terms of the volume of natural gas that was used. We considered 2 possible sources. This is based on our market analysis, which was guided by IRIA and JERA and DOE. We consider from Qatar and from Australia. For the regasification, we just consider to be using the existing terminals now, which have FSRUs and open rack vaporizers. But the distribution, we want to explore whether physical or pipeline versus virtual pipeline or lorries in terms of the environmental impacts. And for the end use, we have 4 main types: the combined cycle, the small turbine, the steam boiler, and the reciprocating engine. These are the more mature technologies of using LNG. So our methodology follows the ISO standards for life cycle assessment. We first identify material and energy flows, convert those flows into environmental impacts, and lastly, we also want to see how these impacts would picture out in the whole sector in the future. So overall, we have 4 phases. If you were here in the morning, then this would be familiar to you, or if you've already done some LCAs, this is familiar. Next, please. Okay, so our reports would be impacts in terms of what we call midpoint categories. So specific environmental categories like climate change, human toxicity, acidification, eutrophication, but also reporting them in terms of what we call endpoint categories, no potential damage to ecosystem quality as well as to human health. So with that, we did our life cycle inventory. On the next slide, this is a summary of the technical information we process for the different life cycle stages. So starting from extraction all the way to utilization, we have inputs like for the extraction of natural gas from wells, what is the infrastructure that is needed, what is the energy needed, what are the chemicals being used, and what are the waste and emissions being done, considering that there are onshore as well as offshore facilities. So we looked at, again, the context of Qatar and Australia for the upstream, and then on the downstream, we also compared the different utilization technologies. In this case, we are also considering that we have different technologies, again, CCGT, gas turbine, steam generation, and reciprocating engine. This one was discussed by the previous presentations as well. Options for distribution. We considered the 3 cases here. There is a mechanical pipeline using or following the road, which has a distance of around 75 kilometers. A straight line route, which is the minimum distance for 57 kilometers, and the virtual pipeline that uses transport by lorry or by trucks. So the next slide, we also use process simulation similar to the engineering team so that we have a stronger accuracy on what we expect for the material and energy flows. In this case, we use a software called Aspen Plus. What was interesting as well is that if we just look at the combustion of natural gas in our turbines and boilers, the flue gas from the combustion itself actually does not meet our air quality standards. So we actually had to include as well air pollution control to ensure that our flue gases from the utilization do meet the needed regulations, right? So the results from that, on the next slide, show these numbers. We also compared the results to our typical plant efficiencies and utilization rates. So for example here, we have, let's say for a combined heat and power, scenario 1, we have around 82% utilization of LHV. For the boiler, just a thermal energy utilization around 96%, and for the CCGT around 58%. So this is in line with most of the efficiencies of existing plants. So we have that sort of validation from there. Okay, so now that we have an idea of how much material and energy flows are involved from extraction all the way to distribution, all the way to utilization, then we can translate those flows into environmental impacts. So on the next slide, we have the first set of results showing the comparison of upstream options and the different impact categories. So on the x-axis here, we have the different categories from acidification, climate change, ecotoxicity, eutrophication, land use, and photochemical oxidant formation. And first, what we can notice is that most of really a majority of the damage to the ecosystem quality comes from climate change. So although there is also significant contribution from acidification and photochemical oxidant formation, and this is the smog formation. And comparing the supply chains from Qatar and Australia, we see that Australian LNG has around 13.5% lower ecosystem impacts, and this is mainly because of the shorter travel distance. The LNG shipping contribution, we can see here in green, it's the biggest difference, no, between the Qatar and the LNG. Okay, so this part here in green, no, that's the biggest difference there. So they have comparable impacts in production, extraction, but this part here is the biggest difference between the two. All right, on the next slide, we have now the impacts to human health. So also similar result that we find with the shorter travel distance, there is lower health impacts of LNG from Australia. Okay. So for human health impacts naman, the biggest contributors would be climate change, particulate matter formation or dust, and then carcinogenic human toxicity. Okay, next on our supply chain would be the distribution options, where we compared the physical pipeline versus the virtual pipeline. And the results show that the physical pipeline has 22% lower impact to ecosystems compared to our virtual pipeline. So the main driver here is now not, well, the climate change is still the biggest impact, but we also have here a large difference in acidification, and this is mainly because of related sulfur oxides that are emitted in the fuel for the lorries. So I know the engineering team earlier had recommended a virtual pipeline, but from the environmental standpoint, now we recommend the physical pipeline. So yeah, now the decision making is higher. Okay. So on the next slide, we have human health impacts. It's the same trend. We have a lower impact from the physical pipelines. Now the driving difference here, we have the, well, in this case here, the climate change is in blue and the human toxicity is in red. But the bigger difference is the particulate matter formation. No? So that's the main source of difference between the two. With the lorries, again, there's still dust formation in the tailpipes. So again, we recommend the physical pipeline. All right. Next, last in our supply chain are the utilization options. So again, the comparison here is per unit of LNG that's being used, right? So comparing the different use cases, we find that the lowest impacts are here with the reciprocating engine, and mainly because the conditions for combustion in the reciprocating engine actually have lower NOx generation. And with lower NOx generation, there is less requirement for air pollution control. And with that, there is a reduction here in the impacts to ecosystem quality. We also see the same for human health impacts. Now, reciprocating engine is still the lowest. Again, this is per cubic meter of LNG. Now, there will be a, or if we want to make a comparison in terms of energy in, outputs, like per kilowatt hour or per megajoule of heat, that would be a different comparison, which our full report would have some details on that. Okay, so looking at all the options that we have for supply chain configurations, what are the best and the worst cases that we can expect in terms of the environmental profile? So on the next slide, we have here a comparison of what we call the worst case, which has the maximum impact among all the possible iterations of the supply chain, and the best case, which has the minimum. So the best case is actually up to 71% lower impact, meaning with the right design of our supply chain, with the right configuration of our supply chain, we can actually avoid up to 70% of environmental impact. And what does that look like? Well, it requires that our LNG is sourced from the closest possible location. So in our scope, that is Australia, we use a conventional pipeline or physical pipeline, and we feed it to a reciprocating engine. So this would give us the minimum environmental impact per cubic meter of LNG that we use. The next slide, some groups may be more focused on the carbon footprint, so we added here a presentation of the carbon footprint. So the profile is the same, no? So again, if you want to reduce our carbon footprint, we choose this configuration, which will give us around 40% less than the worst case scenario. No? So on the next slide, we have some comparison with previous values, especially for our carbon footprint. We find that our numbers that we are using here in our study are comparable. So there is some improved confidence there. The next slide as well, we look at the life cycle carbon footprint. In this study, we report around 0.75 ton CO2 per megawatt hour for a CCGT, which is within the same order of magnitude, within the same range as that reported by existing CCGT plants, from San Miguel and from First Gen, as well as from the DOE emission factors. So we did our own self-critique as well. No? So we find okay, this sounds reasonable, our results look reasonable. Okay, so with that, now we ask the next question. How will the use of LNG actually change our current profile? No? So on the next slide, we look at first the impacts of fuel switching. So the first presentation talked about the demand, the energy demand for heating in our industrial facilities, and we extended up here to now look at what happens if the current fuel mix in our industries switches over to LNG. So on the right here, this is our current energy mix for industries. And if we switch to LNG for different types of configurations, whether it's from Qatar, Australia, or the different versions of the distribution, we get around a quarter reduction in impacts to ecosystem quality. And the next slide shows there's some more modest reduction in human health impacts, but it's still positive reduction, around 1 to 13%. So there are environmental benefits to fuel switching for our industries. And in terms of how this will inform our regulation, our policy, this may be tied into a future carbon market. So I know there are talks of developing some carbon markets, carbon credits, and if LNG switching would be included in those types of trading schemes and carbon credits, then we can have this benefit that we can quantify. All right, next we also look at how LNG plays into the total energy mix in the future scenarios following the DOE energy plan by 2050. So we have the reference scenario and the clean energy scenario. If we look at the reference scenario, we expect 23,000 million standard cubic meters more LNG being consumed by 2050. Compared to the clean energy scenario, it's only around 9,000. However, in both cases, there would still be CO2 emissions from LNG use. And in the case of the reference scenario, where the range is 70 to around 200 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent emitted, that magnitude is actually on the same level as the total carbon footprint of our energy system. So we found it was reported that for 2021, the total carbon emissions of the energy system was already around 71 million metric tons. So if we continue with the reference scenario, this is going to be more or less doubling, because this is additional LNG consumption. For the clean energy scenario, it's again it's lower, but it's still a net carbon emission, right? So, in summary, what did we find? First, it's the downstream part that really creates the environmental impact. And that sounds obvious, no? Because it's really the combustion of the natural gas where we have the main sources of environmental impact. However, even the design choices in the upstream, we can have reductions of around 10%, no, to the total carbon footprint, total environmental performance. So what we need to be looking out for in terms of the environmental impacts to ecosystem quality are climate change, acidification, again mainly from the sulfur oxides, and eutrophication, when we have especially emissions to water. Whereas for human health, you should also be careful for particulate matter and carcinogenic toxicity. Right, so if we want to minimize our environmental impacts, we do recommend that the LNG supply chain be first minimizing transport distances. And this might entail developing centralized heat and power networks, especially if we want to not rely so much on the virtual pipelines, but more on the physical pipelines, right? We also recommend to minimize the fugitive emissions. These are like the losses that we have from storage, from leakages, and this might also come into play when there is now regulation for environmental monitoring of these LNG facilities. There's also a lot of benefit in maximizing the heat and power extraction, which means investing in high efficiency equipment and to ensure that we have economies of scale to utilize as well the larger equipment, which typically have better efficiencies compared to smaller equipment. So with that, I end my presentation, and I hope that has been informative. Thank you.